Juraj Kralik joins the show once again to tell us his thoughts on the Dallas Stars free agency on Monday. We'll touch on the NHL draft and plenty more next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Some forwards just to throw out there that are still available, just as a courtesy that Stars could go after. Tyler Johnson, Jack Roslovic, Tarasenko is still available as well. So those are just a few names that maybe Dallas would push to sign, or it could be just the step of acquiring somebody else. So very, very interesting. I did want to ask this, and then we'll kind of close on free agency in general.
I can see them. I can see them signing like a veteran type of guy, like Thomas Tatar, for 1 year, 1 million type of deal. Like Sprong is actually like sneakily good. If they could get Sprong, it could be like really one of the best value signings, dependent on the AAV as well. But Sprong is really like intriguing case for me, really.
I did want to ask, not a star-specific question, but just free agency in general. Was there a deal you really liked? Was there one player that maybe that really stuck out to you? Is like, man, that is great for whatever franchise that got that player.
Yeah, I mean Edmonton with Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. Like Victor Arvidsson is one of my favorite players to watch, and to get him signed for $4 million. That's great value pickup right there. And with Jeff Skinner, when you consider this, like Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson is going to make the same money as Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin. So that stings a bit. And like Edmonton's top six is really, really scary. Like when you have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you have McDavid and Draisaitl, you have Zach Hyman, and now you also add Skinner, you also add Arvidsson, given he stays healthy. These are the moves. I really like Matt Roy deal, like 6 years for 5. But I think that was really doable for the Stars, especially now when you consider they could offload Radek Faksa. I mean, without problems, it seems. So right now it stings maybe a bit more because there was some space to sign Matt Roy. But nevertheless, I really like those deals, and I also like. Everybody was talking about like Stamkos and Marcia, so I really like low-key liked what Nashville did with Alexander Carrier as well.
Yes,
that's really like good depth signing, and like Toronto with Anthony Stollarts for their goalie, like they could make a good tandem with Joseph Woll. I mean, there were a number of very good deals. One of which I like the most, maybe it's recency bias, but Eric Brandstrom to Colorado could be. Yeah. We can talk about it like this was a great pickup if he pans out as well.
Performs,
exactly.
Yeah, and Toronto, I mean, with Tanev is certainly interesting. I mean, 6 years is just, gosh, in the no move clause is really, really tough. But I mean, they got OEL, which wasn't a bad sign for 3.5. Is not terrible. After they let go of Lyubushkin. I think a lot of Toronto fans are feeling like, well, I feel a lot better about OEL at 3.5 than I do about Lyubushkin, where Dallas got him at that number. So
you can make a case like really signing Chris Tanev to 6 years. I know it's within CBA, but this is really like I would say, cap circumvention at its best, because I mean, this reminds me of the Marian Hossa deal, which actually got illegal because like we knew and everybody knew that he wouldn't be able to play after 40. And I don't think Chris Tanev is playing after year 3 or 4. So this is really tricky. And I really wonder if this doesn't like trick or trickle down some effect on the next CBA, which is up on 2026. I think like when the player has played a certain amount of games or has a certain amount of years, you couldn't sign him more than 4 years, something like that, because this is really like on the verge.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a question mark, but it's Toronto at the same time. like they don't mind going out and shelling out for good players. And Tanev deserves it. He really does. He certainly deserves it. And two, also Sometimes teams just care about, okay, what are you going to give us next season or the next few years? But that was one of my concerns with Tanev that, at 35 next season is the style of game he plays. Like, he's going to get some injuries. He's going to get banged up. He's going to miss some games. It's just that's just the nature of hockey in general. But the specific style of play that he is, man, is he going to make it to 39? Can he be more like a Ryan Suter, where Suter wasn't as physical? He was more mobile. I know it's different now, but yeah, that may be tough for Tanev to get there. Maybe we'll have a Tanev rule, as you mentioned, like Jose.
Yeah, I mean, it's really possible. Like, by the words of none of the Toronto GM, when they saved Dave Clarkson, they only care about year one, really.
Yeah.
And they go from there. I mean, we can bet on which year Chris Tanev goes to LTIR onto Robida Island and is never coming back. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing year 3, maybe year 4. So we can have a chat around that time.
Yeah, well, we still need to. Sometimes it's a bit heinous that we come on here right 2 days after free agency and then just start hammering teams for some of these deals and stuff. We could just let it breathe. But hey, this is the nature of it.
I was thinking about this. We are fans, right?
Yeah.
We invest money and we also invest time into watching. I would say, this product on ice. So I can argue we have a big say on what we like and what we don't like as well. I got some critique on Twitter, like, why you're so negative, like, trust Nill and everything. No, I mean, I can critique, I can have my counter opinions on this. So it doesn't like everything's always rosy. And those people are also human, that they also make some mistakes. And July 1st is really like your date to make mistakes. And for players, your date to make money. So we as fans, we invest time, we invest money in these hockey teams. So we are kind of like shareholders in these companies as well. So we have a say. And I would say it's really important, because then you see it on season ticket sales and stuff like that, because the sport is played for the fans. So I think that's one of my favorite parts, also why I started writing and doing these podcasts. So it's really just to have a say and put it out there, because I think it matters for fans to talk about their favorite team.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I love doing this and just talking about the Stars every day. There's just not a lot of things that do that. Not a lot out there that just talks about the Stars every day. So I really enjoy it, and really a shout out to all the listeners, because this wouldn't be a show without them. And I appreciate all the feedback. And I've gotten my fair share of comments too about Nill, and he's GM of the year, and that's where I say, look, yeah, he's back-to-back general manager of the year in the NHL, but that doesn't exclude him from criticism. And I don't think some of the moves he made on Monday were necessarily his best. And I'm happy to be wrong and change my opinion if I see fit here. 2 months into the season, the Stars are rolling. But look, we can be critical. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this was a great signing. I don't think many could be on board for that.
The same way we praise him for making such great moves over the last 2-3 years. We should have a platform to say some of these moves are questionable at best. But honestly, when it all settles down, they made one bad move in Ilya Lyubushkin. Honestly, Matt Dumba is still on the fence with me. If you just exchange Sean Walker for Ilya Lyubushkin, basically the same deals with the same impacts on money and on term, I could say this was a very good July 1st. So yeah, they had Lyubushkin. The third year was a bit much in my opinion. But overall, now when we know they traded Radek Faksa away, so they actually got the guts to do it. It could open up some possibilities, and it proves that Jim Nill has a plan. So that's really this big takeaway. He has a plan, and he sees what we see. He sees that we also see the same things. We talked about Radek Faksa being traded away for 1, 2, maybe 3 years. The same way we talked about Ryan Suter's buyout.
Yeah.
So
since the day he signed, really.
I'm gonna still argue until I'm blue in my face. Ryan Suter's contract was signed with the notion of being bought out possibly in year 3 and 4, because the contract was structured so it actually is
backloaded.
effective to buy him out, because the contract was actually backloaded, and it didn't like fall into this 35 plus category of the contracts that if you buy them out, you still get the same cap hit. So I'm gonna say it. Jim Nill knew eventually, at least he prepared for the situation. He was gonna buy Ryan Suter out, and that's also what happened.
I also had a theory before free agency start that I think also Chris Tanev sort of triggered the buyout where Nill understood they were not going to be able to match whatever Chris Tanev warrant on the open market. So he's like, okay, we need some cap space. And we wish they would have gone out and got maybe some better players. Like, look, we all want the best players in the world, but I also acknowledge it is really hard to stay under the cap and get good players, because you have to pay them. So it's been awesome. So today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets. It's also the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And it's not just the MLB. You got to get ready for the NHL season. The Dallas Stars schedule is out. Pick the ones that you want to go to and get prepared for some hockey, ladies and gentlemen. Also, comedy, theater, you name it, they have it on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of getting tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Oh, great stuff. Okay, now to the draft, because I did want to touch on that, because that also happened. Everything gets jam-packed. It feels like Stanley Cup finished, and then 2 days later we got a draft and free agency and all this stuff is happening. So Emil Hemming, 29th overall pick for the Dallas Stars. Where do you stand on that pick? Makes a lot of sense. And I'll also throw this one at you. Would you rather have EJ Emery since he was the guy that was available?
Yeah, very good pick.
Mhm.
I would probably rather have Emil Hemming at this point.
Okay.
But it's just very, very slightly.
Yeah.
Just because of the pure talent, shooting talent, and the possibility of transition it into men's game. He already plays a men's league in Finnish Liga. He's gonna continue to do so. He's gonna come prepared to the Texas area once it's maybe in 1 year, in 2 year. I'm a bit worried about Albin Eriksson's situation. So this is like the worst case scenario. It's gonna end up like Albin Eriksson. I don't know if you remember, like second round pick from maybe 2018 or something like that. He had a great shot, but it just didn't transpire into the men's game. Yes, having AJ Emery would be fantastic for like the prospect pool. But as we discussed, they also had holes at the, let's say, forward group, wingers. There were some players like the Distiga that I would also like for them to pick. Having AJ Emery possibly with Aram Minetian or something, I don't know how to pronounce his name, sorry. It could be great as well. But I mean, let's just work with what we have. I'm also like still a bit skeptical about about this fifth round pick. He's also from Finland.
Yeah, the big 6'5" defenseman.
I forgot the name because the name is really complicated.
Mohonen, I believe, is how it's
said.
said.
Mohonen. So he's really big. He's rangy. He's basically your Artem Grushnikov type or something like that. And the seventh round pick was William Samuelson, which I honestly hoped they were gonna go, even though it's maybe against the mode of them drafting, because I saw like for some reason this year GMs drafted big guys again. Like this trend of drafting smaller guys is really like reverting again. But there was this Czech defenseman, left-handed defenseman, really speedy. He was ranked around 45 to 15, but he's like very small. His name is Tomáš Galvas. and he wasn't taken at all, like throughout like the whole
Mhm.
draft.
Yeah.
And when I saw that he's still available at 7th round, I was like, if they pick him, this draft class is actually fantastic. They
Yeah.
didn't. William Samuelson, I heard about him like I heard about him the scouting report, which is 3 letters. It says man. So
Yeah.
I really don't know
Yeah.
about him that much. But Emil
Mhm.
Hemming is a good pick. If he continues like his progress in Finnish Liga, he could be up in Texas, I would say in Austin, maybe in 2 years. And he actually fits kind of a need they have. Like they need a shooter, they need a sniper
Mhm.
for the Johnston and Marek Borg and Logan Stankoven as well, because they are, yes, they can shoot the puck, but they are mostly creators as
Yeah,
well.
playmakers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the Stars got decent value. He was ranked. I think he was 6 around NHL Central Scouting European skaters. So it looks like they got decent value for him. And yeah, they love their Finnish players, and I love Finnish players too. They're two way. They just understand the game. It's full 200-foot hockey. So we'll see in a couple years how that pans out. Just the draft in general. Were there any big winners in your eyes? Maybe some big loser? Any teams that you thought that got a steal for some players? For me personally, Zev Buim, I love him. I watched him in person a few times at Denver, and I thought that was a really nice pick for Minnesota to get him at 12, because I thought he would go somewhere in the top 10. There were some people thought even maybe the top 5, but that's a really nice pick too. Is there anybody like that stood out to you over the weekend?
Yeah, Minnesota did a great job. Like, not only did they get Buyum and trade up for him, they also get Aaron Kiviharju. So that was really like a good pick as well to get Aaron Kiviharju in 4th round. I would say, as he said as well, he
Mhm.
could be the steal of the draft.
Yeah.
I like, apart from the obvious, like the San Jose getting Macklin Celebrini, I really like that they also get Sam Dickinson. So on some boards, I saw Sam Dickinson ranked 2nd, even 3rd. So there is a chance that San Jose actually walks away from the draft with 2 best players available. So that's actually like fascinating for them. So San Jose and Minnesota, as you mentioned, are
Mhm.
my winners of the draft, and I really like what she did, and I really like what San Jose is actually doing. Even though they are rebuilding, they acquired Ty Dellandrea, who could get a nice and decent shot in top
Mhm.
6 in San Jose, which he wouldn't get here in Dallas.
Yeah.
I still miss him. I still think he could be the guy to replace Radek Faksa on the
Yeah.
4th line. So I would say the communication with him was also a bit mishandled by Jim Nill, if you ask me, because he was still like 23 years old, like cost control asset, which you could play this year. You could find a space and time for him to play on your roster, on your daily roster. But I think maybe the connection with Pete DeBoer and the trust with the Pete DeBoer was kind of lost as well. That's why I also expect
Yeah.
Nils Lundqvist to be moved this year, so that Pete DeBoer has his guys which he can trust, and Ty Dellandrea in San Jose wasn't anymore that guy.
Yeah, and maybe this is a transition to like, hey, Pete, this is the team you wanted. Maybe this has some of those characteristics. Like, Pete wanted this. Maybe this wasn't necessarily Jim Nill. I mean, obviously it is him. He's the one signing at the end of the day, but maybe we can put a little pressure on Pete. Like, okay, like, you got rid of Delandria, possibly. Maybe that was one of the players you wanted to replace, and you brought in some bigger guys, some size, and already you have a roster that you feel comfortable, that you trust, right? Because we also see how Niels Lundqvist has been handled over the past few seasons. So, alrighty, like, show me what you can do now, because maybe there's no more excuses. And like, I don't know what conversations him and Nill are having, but maybe there was some different philosophies on the type of team, or certain guys they wanted to add to the roster, and maybe there's a bit more of Pete DeBoer in this, because I think too, you mentioned the trend in drafting big players. You watch a Stanley Cup final, and just like, you look at the sizes and the weights of guys on the back end, Edmonton necessarily didn't have the cream of the crop decor. I mean, Ekholm and Bouchard are obviously great, but after that, I mean, obviously really solid players, but I don't think anybody that's in the top 15 of NHL defensemen. And I just size wins a lot of times. It really does. There's always the anomaly, but big teams that can just grind and take the beating of an NHL season usually find their way playing at the end of the year. And I think
Absolutely.
teams always find that, and they're going to copy it.
Exactly. I mean, the Stars learned the hard way with Vegas, and
Yeah,
I honestly think if like the regular season ends up a bit different, so that Vegas doesn't play Dallas and plays Edmonton, I think Vegas beats Edmonton in round one.
yeah,
Like genuinely thinks just because of their D, the size of their D, and then we could have like totally different outcome of the playoffs, right?
yeah.
So I think Dallas learned on the Vegas way even last year and this year as well. They were really tired after that series with Vegas because those D's, those big D, actually, no pun intended, but those big D in Vegas actually tired the Stars players.
Yeah.
We could see the glimpses of that in the Colorado series, and we could see like the total collapse, I would say physical collapse of
Mhm.
some Stars players in the Western Conference Finals. So absolutely, this is I think the new trend again because there
Yeah.
was some I saw some graphs. There was some spike maybe 2020, 2021, or 2019 of the shorter guys being drafted, and
Mhm.
they can still have their space. I mean, look at just Sam Reinhart. He scored
Yeah.
Game 7 winner in Stanley Cup Finals. Look at Wyatt Johnston. Look at Logan Stankoven. There are
Yes.
some still those players, but when you look at Logan Stankoven, you can say they play with an edge. So even if you are small, if you are big, the trend is you really need to play with an edge. And that's why I think that's the reason why the Stars targeted Ilya Lyubushkin and Matt Dumba in the free agency as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, man. Vegas was not an 8 seed this past season. They were certainly not
For me,
an 8
they
seed.
were. I mean, paper wise, I had my like ranking, like power ranking before the
Yeah.
playoffs. Dallas was number one. Vegas was number two. I
Yeah.
think that was two best teams because even after this time, I still believe Dallas is better team than Edmonton. They just
Mhm.
got beat, but that happens in hockey. Sometimes better teams lose,
Mhm.
and I really think like Dallas has this like path of like hell of Vegas and then Colorado. So I wasn't that surprised for them to get beat by Edmonton.
Yeah, this feels like it could be the beginning of something we saw in the late '90s, where it was just Dallas and Colorado. It was Dallas and Edmonton. Maybe like Vegas and Edmonton are those teams now that like the Stars are just going to meet every year, and they're going to have these heavyweight battles, which is certainly fun. But this has been amazing. I know we went about an hour once again, which is great. So this will probably be a two-part interview, but so much happened within within the hour, including a Radek Fox trade. You're right. Thank you so much, as always. Such a pleasure to have you on, and I'll bring you back on for sure as we get closer to the season. But thanks for reaching out because, like many Stars fans, you were fired up. Talk some free agency as well.
Absolutely, Joey. Thank you for having me.
All righty, Stars fans, thank you once again. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, show your Rise some love. He's available on Twitter, as you all know. I'm sure you already give him a follow, but sauce him a follow. I'll put the link in the description as well. And yeah, Jim Nill gave us plenty to talk about in the next month or two. So we'll continue these conversations in the off season. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.